What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the podcast. Don't forget to go to the website, check out the coffee that we have in stock over there, and without any further delay, enjoy this episode with Mr. Tom Hyser.
That's it. It's that easy.
All right, we're in.
We're in. Thanks, Tom, for doing this. I have to, full disclosure, and this is not what I want to just like dive into the whole time, but you are in possibly the greatest rollerblade video of all time ever.
Right.
And like when I say it shaped my life, is like there's certain moments, like, you know, there's a lot of things that rollerblading taught me and growing up, you know, as a kid and stuff, and, you know, like falling and trying again and keep trying until you get it, you know, never quit stuff, the creativity, like you see the world different. You look at things, you don't see like just a city and some concrete, you see a playground and you make things out of it, and it kind of bleeds over into everything that I do in life. But that video was like, so like my eyes were wide open in Hoax 2. I was just like watching it, just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. You know, Roller Warehouse magazine, I had to order it, you know, dial up through the phone and get it through the mail and stuff. So it's like an honor to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks, man. That video changed my life too. So
I guess it did. Like sure. It's what, like, that's something that you have that no one can ever take away from you.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing about skating, and like sometimes I'm envious of the kids from this era because they have such, you know, they just point their iPhone at the action and there it is, you know. But yeah, the Hoax 2 is awesome. I mean, we made like little high 8 video edits to try and get sponsored when the sport was just beginning, because I came from skateboarding and it just was the thing to do, you know. My parents had a high 8 video camera, so we filmed each other and like put 2 VCRs next to each other and made little videos, and they got us sponsors there. We got sponsored by Hyper Wheels and stuff, but there was a video called The Bottom Line that I think came out just before the Hoax. I think that was the first like real video I was in, and then the Hoax 2 came out, and that was like the breakout thing where we were starting to really get after it and doing kind of original stuff at that time. My best friend Andy Cruz and I were like always out in Atlanta street skating, and we were inspired by skateboarders because that's what was around us. And yeah, so we were going crazy, you know. And there was a lot of tricks that didn't make that video. You know, we saw the video, we're like, oh, what happened to this and that stuff? They didn't film, but you know, at the time, no one knew who we were, so like we didn't have much pull. Like Arlo and those guys that were already somewhat established ahead of us got to shine in that, and they deserved every bit of it. But yeah, Hoax 2 is really cool, man.
It's really neat that you get, like, very few people get to be a part of something that changed like a culture. And at that moment in time, like, rollerblading was big, but like not skateboarding or BMX level. And then almost after that video, it got bigger than all of them.
I know. We grew faster than we probably should have, honestly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, at the time, you know, we were, like, I would skateboard and blade at the same time. I'd bring them both to most sessions. And a lot of my friends were skateboarders still, so we were, like, skating with skateboarders. And at the first X Games in 1996, I went there, and, you know, we get into this, like, everyone's staying at like a college dorm, you know, and we go there, like Tony Hawk's there, Danny Whale, these big names, and we got off the bus, man, and it was like, took the bus from the airport, and we go in the lobby, and it's like some of my idols from skateboarding were standing there. It's like Colin McKay and Toss Papas and Danny Way, and they're like, Toss Papas is just a hard-ass Australian. He was always busting people's balls. But he's like, the first time I heard fruit moodahs, you know, eat fruit moodahs, we show up and we're like, oh, whoa, like these guys hate on us. Because we showed up out of nowhere, just like you said. The sport blew up overnight. Literally in like a year and a half, the sport blew up. And these guys had been around forever with BMX and skateboarding. And then here we were, like the stars of the X Games the first year, you know. So, yeah, we got it good, man. We were the young rats. They got hazed. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on all that stuff, because really, like, the interesting part to me is like growing up and doing it for so much, and then traveling I was in a right before it was called like the X Games officially. It was the Slim Jim Extreme Games, and then I did a NIS in San Francisco, and it was just like I came to a point where my dad was like, "You got to get a job. You can't do this anymore. You got to actually start making money." And like I really had a choice. Like he didn't make me, but I felt a lot of pressure in it. But really, I had a choice to like go one way or the other. And I was like, there's probably no money in it. I could travel the world and have a lot of fun, or work in the family business. Which isn't bad at all. But I see some of my friends now that actually got jobs from sticking with it, and are actually doing stuff they love to do that is either involved or around the sport, and similar to like very much like your position now. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I got my first pair of skates, and my dad's like, "You'll never use those damn things," It's still a joke to this day. Man, I don't know. It was luck, right place at the right time, and God, just a lot of folks that hooked me up, and there was some bit of like just go for it in my mind. I had some friends in skateboarding in Atlanta that went off at the same time we did to California, and they made it big, and just before us, and they were starting to make it big just before us. We're like, wow, Jamie Thomas can get sponsored by Real Skateboards, and we could probably do something too, and so we sort of had this naive mindset in our head, and I guess it was a blessing because at the first X Games, I blew out my knee in warm-ups. And so that at that point, I realized, oh, wow, this is pretty violent sport on your body, to skate like this. And it's probably not sustainable for a long time, kind of along your mindset. But I wanted to be involved with that kind of action sports culture world. And so I started kind of paying attention to the business side, and I got the opportunity to work for K2 and develop a skate, and then start helping with marketing. And I always just like made sure I was on point for those opportunities where I got like the corporate chance. And then that's, to me, this day, like that's today, that's how I exist because of that decision, really. So
and then like I just randomly like, so because of the podcast, I got Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. I was never really like on it, never really cared, just went about doing my own thing. And then I was like, searching random people, they hit my head, and here's Tom Hyser. Like, man, he's like mountain biking everywhere, downhill, like he's going, like the whole family's out. You take your family out, and it seems like your kids are into it. Everybody's into all these cool things. So you just kind of like keep that sort of mentality and keep going, and your kids seem to love it. Is it something that, like, how did you get into the mountain biking part of it?
It started a long time ago. My brother's friend, when I was like, 12 or something like that, had one of the early mountain bikes, and he left it at our house and went away for the summer, and I rode that thing everywhere. I remember riding up my backyard to my best friend's house, like this steep little, like, abrupt hill thing that there's no way I could ride my BMX bike, but I put in that low gear on the mountain bike and climbed up it, and I was like, this is amazing. You know what I mean? So way back then, I got the bug. I started out BMXing at like every kid in the 80s after watching E.T., but mountain biking has always been there, and I got out of it a little bit when skating took over. But when I moved out to Seattle to work for K2, they were making mountain bikes. And so I bought one of their, like, just one of the first full suspension mountain bikes, and I started riding out there with my buddy Scott Matchell, who's the BMX product manager at the time. And he took me to some really rad places in Washington State, like Tiger Mountain and stuff, and just fell back in love with it then and just stuck with it. And then moved to New Hampshire to work for Rollerblade, got like 10 years ago or whatever. And then I tried to get my wife into mountain biking when we lived in Seattle, and I was just an idiot, like young dude taking her down stuff she shouldn't have gone down, going way too fast, and she wrecked a bunch. But then fast forward 10 years later in New Hampshire, I got her a fat bike, and with those big, huge fat tire mountain bikes, and that let her like have this new taste. And I rode with her slowly like I should have the whole time, like a good husband, and taught her how to do it. And then she fell in love with it. And then the kids were just right along for the ride and wanted to get into it with us, you know? And so, you know, kind of the same thing with snowboarding. So, yeah, my family is, I'm pretty blessed. Like, my wife's super active and likes to shred, and the kids are great athletes, and I just try and keep up with them now. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't think people realize like just how crazy like the mountain biking thing is until you actually go do it.
It is so fun, man. And especially now the bikes are incredibly good. The suspension on them, and I mean, you can just go crazy on a mountain bike. It kind of scratches that itch for me to do dangerous things. So I like to jump and drop off stuff and just go fast in the woods. And I just like being out in nature anyway. It calms the soul, I think. And I think it's, for my kids and my wife, the same effect. And my daughter's incredibly good at cross-country racing. Like, nationally ranked, rides for Santa Cruz grassroots team. And then my son is sponsored by Transition Bikes for like free riding, and I didn't do any of that. That was just them out riding and running into the right people, and they're like, "Yo, kid, get on this." So it's cool to watch them kind of follow a similar path that I got to do in skating, but in a much bigger industry, you know.
Yeah, something that's been there a long time. It's established, and also like you can draw from your experience and help them out. You know, if they have questions, or, you know, the business side of things, like you said, learning all that stuff and soaking up, because you were in something that was brand spanking new.
Yeah, it was brand spanking. I mean, it's like clean slate new, you know. And then I tell my kids, just like, be yourself, and if it works out, there's nothing more annoying than the parent that calls and says, "Timmy is so incredible at skating, and he should be on your thing. He won this contest," you know, like. Yeah, so my kids never do that, and I never do that for my kids. Because I can't stand it when I've had that happen to me a couple times in our little sport, but yeah, it's just annoying.
Oh yeah, I've coached Little League, been involved like sports all my life, and then my kids, you know, their stuff. So I've dealt with the parent that's like, you know, it's my kid, exactly what you said, and there's nothing more annoying than being on the other end. They're like, really? No, because if he was, he'd be in there, you know, like.
I think the coach likes your kid less when you do that. Just tip to any parents out there: don't be that parent, because the coach doesn't like you. No,
not at all, not at all. But there's so many of them, like they look blind and live through, you know, they live through their kids. I mean, that happens a lot. Like, and they want, I get where they're coming from a little bit, because they want them to be so good because that's their kid and they care, but. They're so blind to the fact they don't see that they're actually doing them such a disservice.
Yeah, I think all of us, to some extent, live a little bit through our kids, but I mean, I definitely try not to do that. I mean, I grew up wrestling a bunch when I was a kid, from like 3rd to 9th grade, and I got really good at it. My dad was state champ in Wisconsin and wrestled for University of Wisconsin. He was a total badass, and I realized, like, in 8th grade, I was like, wow, my dad's getting mad when I lose a match more than I am, and I kind of was doing it to please him, and I just didn't want to ever, you know, he meant all the best, you know. I'm not talking smack. Pops is amazing, but
yeah,
I'm glad I wrestled, but I definitely think about that for my own kids when they're doing their things.
Dude, wrestling is one of those things, and it's awesome. I didn't know that you wrestle like that, because that's one thing that I look at the trend of, like, successful people and like how successful wrestlers are after they get done, because of the mental and the physical and the strain and all the struggle that they go through. It seems like they're just, whatever they apply themselves to, they're just stronger than other people in whatever area that it is.
It's such a great sport. You know, it's like, it's fighting with rules, man, and it's like, it taught me so much at an early age, and if you're not into it, it's too hard of a sport to continue doing. You know, I mean, it's so exhausting, and it definitely taught me structure. You know, I mean, I would make goals in wrestling that my dad would talk to me about doing, and like, I still do that now. You know, it's like, I remember when I wanted to be a pro skater, I had this little note on my globe in my room that said "I will be pro," and I just looked at that every day, and like that was the mission. I wanted to be a professional skater, and I had that thing every day I looked at and went for it, and that was because of wrestling, man. It's like you just said, it's awesome. And my son wrestled for a little bit here too, and it's like as a Hyser, you have to do it for a little bit. It was one of the things that you had to do a little bit of. So he's dabbled in it, not as long as I did it, but he's definitely had his taste. So, killer sport.
Yeah, and I tried to like nudge my son towards it. He didn't want to have any part of it. He did taekwondo for a little bit, and then he ended up like he gets to the part where he's got to like hit people to get a belt,
Yeah.
And he got done sparring the first time, and he was like, he did good. Like he kicks hard. His technique was great. The coach was like, man, this guy's awesome. And he gets done. He goes, I don't want to do this anymore. And I go, well, what's wrong? Did you get hurt? He goes, no, I just don't like hitting people. Like it made me feel bad.
That's good. That's good.
So that was the end of like any sort of wrestling martial art thing. That was it. That was like the end of his. I was like, okay, well, we're done. So that's the furthest you can go. But
my wife and I struggle with like how hard do we push, because my son TJ likes to just free ride, but he also wins cross country races or gets top 3 when he does them. But he does those because his friends are in it and the social bit, but he's starting to be over that. He's like, I don't really want to do this. And part of us is like, well, you're 13, you signed up for it, you need some kind of structure. At this age, I think it's important for some kind of sports structure. So like we're kind of making him do that for now. But it's a weird thing when you're like, you have to do something, because the skating background is just, as it's just like, it's free flow. You go out, no one's making you do anything. You're just with your homies, and you definitely can run into mischief when you're doing that. But it's also the coolest thing about it, So
yeah, it's like it goes hand in hand. You can't have one you can't have that without that other side. The mischief that comes with it. But and that's one tough thing that I was going to ask you there is about like, you do need the structure, and I'm a firm believer in that. My dad was cool as well, and he was a college athlete, played tennis. He's really, really good, and he was like, hey, he believed in that structure and that guidance and everything. But then at the same, I was like, the bad child. I went off on the rails and and did that stuff. Even though it was just that. But it's a little bit of me when I look at the kids. I'm like, man, I like to let them be creative and be their own, like figure things out with like see their little minds work and kind of nudge them that way, but with the structure and finding a good balance in between.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of over-parenting, personally. I mean, we homeschool our kids, so they're done at like noon, 1 o'clock, and they get to go, like we live at the bottom of a mountain, and they just go play in the woods or rip around like we live right, you got the mountain at the end of the street, and the other direction's downtown Huntsville, so it's like a smaller city, and we let them go ride bikes around and rip it at the skate park, and just kind of get lost in playtime. And I think that's important. There's so much structure for kids. It's like piano, whatever extracurricular learning activities, and so I mean, who knows if I'm right, but I feel like it's important. I don't know.
Well, I was homeschooled and under the same sort of thing, so that's kind of cool. And I turned out okay, I think.
Good.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. But just to switch gears just a little bit, and like your business side and the avenues that your life is taking you down. I know you mentioned working for K2. I know, or at least I heard, that's what I know. Like my favorite skate of all time was created by you.
Thank you.
The
cool.
Fatty.
Yeah. That was a fun one.
Man, that and I can tell you right now, after the Slim Jim Extreme Games, right? The X Games I was in there. Matty Mance and Eric Shrine go skate. Like we take them out, we go skating with them, and this is how vivid. Like I had TRS. Hoax, all that. I had that skate. Like that's the only thing our bike shop had was the.
Where did you live at the time?
I lived in Harlingen, Texas.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like way down at the end of the earth too. So there's that, and all we had was the rollerblade. So I take him out, and I'm like, "What are these skates? This is incredible. These things are so cool." And I remember, like, I can see his wheels spinning as he did a royale down this rail that we took him to. I can see them spinning in slow motion in my eye. Like, I know that it's one of those moments again where I'm like, dude, I went home immediately and spent my money on those skates, and I never skated anything else.
Yeah, man, that was I was lucky, you know. Mark Shays, who was involved with the first contest stuff, got a call from K2. They're one of the sponsors of the NIST tour and the early ASA events, and said, "Hey, do you know anyone that's got a good mind for skate design and, you know, ideas of where the sport's going?" And he dropped my name, and I got the job because of him. And I was at art school at the time at Atlanta College of Art. It's now Savannah College of Art, but I was on track to just be a painting major, and I was loving that. It was great. And then they hit me up, and they're like, "Hey, send us drawings for your fantasy idea of what the best skate would be." And so I sent them just some sketchbook drawings of what the ideal skate would be. And the next thing I know, they're like, "Oh yeah, we want to hire you." And I sold my design for $500 for that skate. About $1 for every one of those skates. I would not have to work, but that's another story. And no one knew it was going to blow up like it did. And I toured the world because of it, right? So, like, I wasn't as good as Matt Mance and Eric Shrine at skating, but like I said, I was smart enough to know that I wasn't as good of a skater as the top skaters, but this was a way for me to get in the mix. So, and that skate, along, like my 2D drawings that I did, along with the talent of engineers that were at K2 at the time, these are guys from Boeing and everything, and they were really great because they weren't skaters, but they knew they needed to listen to us. So the way that they developed stuff back then was really good. Like, they had a great product development process. They listened to us. They took my drawings and they would show me their version of it, and we'd say, "No, tweak it like that." And we got to test a bunch of different samples, and yeah, just the whole process was great and taught me a lot. And I don't know that they make skates like that anymore at K2. Like, that process, I think, and those guys are all gone. And but they had it going on at the time, man. And I was very lucky to learn from the guys that worked at K2 during those days, like from all the different levels, from sales to the marketing dudes, and especially those engineers. They were dialed.
And then from there, where did you go? Like, from that point, like, you sell that skate for $500, which, if anybody were to know, they still make that skate, like, they still make that model now, and they make a couple different ones. People had it was the biggest skate there was for a while.
Yeah, there's still aspects about that skate that I think other companies are just now getting onto, you know, which is cool to see. So where did I go from after that?
Yeah.
So then, you know, they had me move from Atlanta to the home offices in Seattle, which was cool. I got to live in West Seattle at first with Chad Grout, who was a pro skater for Rollerblade, and then I lived on Capitol Hill in downtown Seattle, like in the crazy art district area, which is amazing. And yeah, I was like this punk, the youngest guy at K2 by years, and I would go to the office every day and try and fit the corporate thing, you know. That was really weird.
What? Okay, I'm trying to picture it.
Yeah, like, there's corporate dudes and me, you know. So it was really weird, and I don't sit still very well, and I had to sit like in this office, and the internet had just come out, and just like I'd go crazy. Luckily, I traveled a lot, but when I sat in an office, I'd go crazy, man. It was terrible. It was just terrible because I just wanted to skate and be out in the mix, and I got to do a lot of that, and I got to travel. Literally, I've been just about everywhere, except for Russia, and for some reason I haven't made it to South America, but I've been just about everywhere else because of it, and made friends everywhere in the world. And to me, that's probably the coolest part about the whole thing, is that, you know, I've gone everywhere, man. My first trip out of the country was to South Korea when I think I was just about to turn 19 or something, and it was like, oh my God, it's like landing on Mars, and I've got friends from everywhere, like I grew up in upper middle class America in Roswell, Georgia, and I suddenly had friends from like the hood in New York, and I would remember going to their apartments like, oh my gosh, it's like what you see on cops on TV, and this is where a friend lives. So I got this great life experience of like, as you know, skating, you have black kids, white kids, Hispanic kids, every socioeconomic class was involved with the sport, and I made friends with all of them. So it's crazy.
And that's one thing. That's one thing about traveling. Like we do a lot of traveling now, me and my wife and the family and everything. Like that's one of our favorite thing to do is find different destinations. In fact, we don't do Christmas gifts. We do a big trip during the year. So
that's awesome.
And we have to pick somewhere new. We finally ran out of places we can go or we can drive like in that time frame. Our last one was Grand Canyon, Zion. We spent Christmas in Zion and then went to Bryce Canyon and back around. But just finding different spots, and we flew to New York and drove back in a minivan, went through, the entire east side, just hit everything up all the way down. But I figured, growing up in such a far, like back then it's a long ways away. It still is a long ways away. It's at the end of America down there, I'm right on the border of Mexico. So it takes forever to get anywhere and you're kind of isolated and you only know like what's inside your bubble. And once I started traveling, really, like it kind of opens your eyes, and it's like the best education I ever got.
100%. It really, really is. And you watch like right now all the political stuff, and I live in the South, right? So there's all people think it's typical South. Everyone's on the same agenda. It's not true. But I get into these discussions with people, and you realize really quickly people that have been out of the country or have friends outside of their background, how they grew up, it's really so important. I don't think you can have these big opinions without traveling to different places. In the U.S., as you know, it's just so diverse. It's so diverse. It's
crazy.
Like little countries in itself,
It really is. Different accents, different, people, their cultures are different. Their backgrounds. I guess we really did, like, this country is kind of founded on, immigrants and different people, from different countries anyway. So there's that. But, like, it really is true. Like, the South, people have, people used to go down to South Padre Island all the time. That's where I worked for the majority of the time I was there. And they used to come down thinking, visiting from Chicago and be like, man, I expected everybody to have, like, a cowboy hat on and a gun on their hip, Yeah, and I'm like, it's not like that at all, They may have the gun, you just don't see it, but...
I live in Alabama, which, as a kid, I'd be like, you're crazy if I'm ever going to live in Alabama. It just seemed like the most redneck place in the world, and parts of it are, but Huntsville, Alabama is full of the smartest people in the world. There's more people with their PhD in Huntsville per capita than anywhere in the U.S. There's NASA and, all these crazy... All my friends are just, like, way smarter than me,
Really?
So,
I did not know that.
It's crazy, yeah. The Center of Defense is here, and all of the rockets that get designed are from dudes from Huntsville, Alabama.
If you had
NASA,
to pick a spot, it would not be Alabama. If you were going to guess that, like if you pose that question, you would not guess that it's even in Alabama.
No, I was living in New Hampshire and Vermont for 8 years, where Rollerblade's up there, and I just wanted to be back near my family because I realized my kids were missing family because we had zero family up there. Everyone's in Atlanta. And I told my boss, I was like, man, I got to go back down south. I can't skate half the year, and my whole family's down there, and I just had this burning itch, like now is the time. And that was 3 years ago. And he's like, well, man, you do good work. We're going to have to just figure out how to do this remotely. And I was like, thank God, because I was ready to have to do something else if I had to. I did not want to, but I was ready because I felt that sure that I needed to be back near my family. So we started looking kind of in a 3-hour bubble around Atlanta, and we looked in North Carolina and Tennessee, and we've even looked at North Georgia. I just didn't want to do Atlanta again because it's an absolute zoo. And my brother-in-law lives here in Huntsville, and he's like, man, you should look at Huntsville. I'm like, what are you talking about? No way. And started looking on Google, and I was like, wow, what's this mountain on the edge of town? Oh, wow, there's a little city and a mountain. I was like, that's perfect, And Googling it, was growing like crazy, and went down to visit, and we're just blown away by the nature and proximity to everything. And I can get to Atlanta in 3 hours, and it's super cool. There are lots of good places to skate. So yeah, here we are.
Isn't it weird how there is like so spots you wouldn't think about, like you did, like we went to Connecticut this year for Christmas. That was our trip.
It's beautiful up there too. Yeah.
Man, it's awesome. Like we actually looked at it and went, we could actually live here. This place is so cool.
Yeah, Vermont was. If you've never been, I'd never been to New England until they asked me to move there, and we went to visit in the fall. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And we just had an epic 8 years there, but we'd still be there if it wasn't this kind of need to get back to home. And I'm glad we did. My mom just got diagnosed with dementia last year, and so it's like, there you go, that's why we're here, like that's exactly why we're here. So my brother just went through a divorce, and I was able to go out and see him and hang out with him on his 50th birthday, and like just family is super important, and I kind of neglected that. I didn't neglect. I had to go feed the family and have my career and do what I did, but just at a certain point, I think you realize, like, wow, family's the most important thing. So,
well, it kind of goes. You had to like make your way through life. I mean, that's who you are. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't have the skates. You wouldn't have had the jobs in the industry that you did if you didn't have that sort of mentality about you. But I get what you're saying, and it kind of seems like you've just found your way through life in a cool way by just letting it, like, taking opportunities as they arise, and then you end up there where you're needed.
Yeah, life's like that. I mean, when I lived in Seattle, this is a cool little story. When I lived in Seattle, I had a buddy that worked at Greg's Green Lake, just another blader dude from the town. He was a snowboarder, and I got a snowboard at work from K2. They make really good boards, and I needed to wax it before I went snowboarding on a Friday afternoon. I went down to the shop, and I'm in the back because my buddy let me in the back on the grinder and waxing and getting my board ready. And the manager walks in and says, hey Chris, who's this dude in the back? And Chris is like, this is Tom, he's a pro rider for K2, And he's like, oh, I want to meet this guy. And he came in there, and we met. And then, years later, after my online skate shop, after we sold it, I needed a job, and I've sold rollerblade skates. And I reached out to Rollerblade, and I was like, hey, I know I can help you guys sell more skates. I've been selling your stuff forever. I've been in the industry, blah, blah, blah. And one of the big guys at Rollerblade at the time was a guy named Jeremy Stonier. And Jeremy's like, hey, man, come up to New Jersey, because that's where it was at the time, and do some interviews. I remember you when I met you. You were a good guy. Let's see what we can talk about. And so, small world, and now Jeremy is the international brand manager of Rollerblade. So, you never know. I could have been a punk, and just been like, oh, whatever, that day. But I'm glad I wasn't, because he's my boss now. So.
It's so, and this is something all action sports, just being around it. And I was in no way on any sort of level at all, like where it was, there was no way. I mean, I would have had to work 10 times harder. But it, just being around it, which I'm thankful that I just was at least decent enough to be able to hang around some of these people that I did. You realize, like, I mean, I would say 99.9% of all of the big stars that I met to the, like, low, it doesn't matter. They're all the same. They're all really super cool. And I do CrossFit now a lot. I've done it for the last like 4 years. And I think I've tied it to something. I don't know if you think the same way, but it's anything with sort of a struggle and something that beats you up and something like you've got to go through this like painful experience type of thing together. You understand, like you have a different sort of humbled understanding because you're going through the same exact pain that person that may not be as good as you goes through. So you don't ever treat anything like or anybody, like they're better or below you.
Yeah, totally. It's funny you say that, as Arlo Eisenberg and Randy Spicer are super into CrossFit.
Oh, Randy is too? I knew Arlo was. But...
And it's cool because when they skate now, it's like they can skate. They're not 40-year-old men that are too frail to skate. Because if you skate when you're 40, you better have a strong core and your back, and or you're just going to get destroyed your first fall, you know?
I know. I still hit the park every now and then when I get time. I still hit the park. And
I just started hitting the park again like 2 months ago because I took a few years off. I mean, I've been speed skating a lot just because my body, it needed a break. And then now we're developing a new skate, a rollerblade, and got all these 3D printed parts. And I'm like, I've got to test this. I got to really, you know, so like my son's gotten back into it with me, and we're at the skate park a few times a week now. It's so much fun. And I just started from zero. Like, can I soul grind? You know, like little soul grind, bigger. And it's really a fun process. And now I'm like, I did a rail last Friday. I was like, all right, I'm doing a rail. Like, it's a skate park rail, but still, it's like, it was like, the night before I was like envisioning it, you know, I know I can do it. And then I got to the skate park next day. I was like, saw it in my head, same technique I always used when I was younger, and boom, I did it first try, you know. So it was like, it's just cool to scare myself again and push myself on the skates, because it's the fountain of youth, man.
Yeah, I mean, it really, I believe that 100%. I tell, like, you just stay young when you do like, you're never too old to do it. It seems like a little kid sport, like, okay, you should probably stop doing that, and I'm like, no, I loved it. Like, I lived and breathed it. I didn't do anything but that, and I still love it. Like, even though I don't get to do it, but every now and then, I still love it. And something about falling and hurting myself and just the whole process. And now I don't go out to impress anybody but myself. I just try to go out and hit a trick if I'm feeling it. If I don't have to. It's just, it's so much, it's almost come full circle where I enjoy it so much more.
Yeah, for sure. My son, I grew up skateboarding too. My son's been doing that a bit. And my friend Isaac Altmans, who works at Bones, who is a blader, sent him a new board. And, you know, I'm just like getting my ollie back, you know. I was like, man, I used to be able to ollie so high, you know. And now I'm just like, I ollied up a curve, you know. Like starting these things kind of all over again as my son gets into it, because he's 13. And you have this thought, it's like, I used to do that, you know. And he's my offspring. I want to show him how to do this, you know. But he's already starting to get better than me.
That can get you hurt too. That ego can get you hurt if you haven't done it in a while. It's like, ooh, man.
It happened this summer at Winter Park in Colorado. We're going through the terrain park on our bikes, and TJ's like, Dad, just follow me in. And I'm like, okay. And I was just like going around the jumps, you know. I mean, I was hitting the like 20 footers, but then he like brought me to the zone where the jumps are 45 feet long. I'm like, yeah, I'll shoot pictures of you, buddy. It's like, that's not me. I'll jump things I can clear on my blades, but not this like snowboard jump thing you're doing, you know.
So, I mean, does it ever seem like surreal, or there was a different life back then, like you doing the things you did and being in the videos that you've been in, and the process and the people you've got to meet?
Yeah, it's really like, it really trips me out lately. Like, I feel like every time I go to Europe, which I do like 4 or 5 times a year, I'm just like, is this gonna be the last time? Like, and it like skating still has me doing these kind of things, you know. And sometimes I get tired of traveling too, you know. It's like 70 something days last year on the road, but at the same time, like, this is an opportunity very few people have. So then I get psyched back up. But it's really weird. Like, the Blader Cup thing happens every year in November, and to go there, and, you know, like, been friends with John Julio for 20 something years, you know, and we're still, you know, hanging out together. And B. Harden and Andy Cruz comes from Finland every couple years, and it's a trip. Or go to Winter Clash over in Holland. It's like 2,000 people in a skate park, and it's like, wow, we were here when it started, and now it's this. It's like, it's definitely, I don't know, lately especially, I've had a lot of that, like, trip out time on the whole thing, you know, because it's been So I started when I was 15. I'll be 45 this summer. So there you go. It's been a while.
That's proof right there. I mean, this is what kind of like what I founded the podcast on, and the ideas and things, because I hit a point where I like did the regular old thing, you know, and I lost all my hobbies. I wasn't doing anything, just working, paying bills, you know, that sort of stuff. And then I got, you know, I took a trip with my kids. I just decided finally, like, I need to get out. I used to travel all the time. Took a trip with my kids to New Mexico, just a short trip. And that really, like, got me back into, I don't know, I'd say being me again, you know, being the, like, what I like to do, the things I enjoy in life. And,
yeah, man.
And, like, I look back and go, I want to share that message with other people, and like, if you have a hobby, it may be just a tiny little hobby, but you can turn that into something. Maybe you're not a pro rollerblader, but you can turn that into something where you work doing something that associates you with that thing you love. Like, you can find your passion or your,
for sure,
you know, whatever, through that, by doing it.
Yeah, that's my dream for my kids. Like, I think they've seen us do it. It's like, you know, the money chase is something, and maybe that's for some people, but I think experience, like you just said, you know, experiences are way more important than money. And when you die, and unfortunately I've had some friends die early, and I think that's like, it sucked, but it was also a blessing, and made me realize, like, you know, it's short, it could be done tomorrow, so you might as well do what you love. And, you know, sometimes you think about, oh, maybe what if I did this instead? You know, sometimes I'm like, what if I stayed in art school and I did painting? And, you know, I see a few of my friends that are really sick artists. I'm like, man, what if I did that? You know, but I don't know. I don't regret it. I don't regret it, and I hope my kids do. Like, I told my son TJ, I was like, man, if you end up just being like a mountain bike guide at the Whistler Bike Park, that's sick. You know,
it really is. Like, it really is. Like, I mean, happiness and being able to pay your bills, like, that balance is totally what you need. I mean, for instance, like, I just talked to a guy last night, and I posted the podcast this morning. He started doing this thing on the Astros because he loves baseball. All the prospects, he just watched them all the time. And so he started tweeting out 7 years ago stats on all the players and, like, his kind of thought on how they did. And now he's like, he knows all of the, you know, the upper management scouts. He travels. He makes money off of reporting on Astros prospects. And it's like, dude, it started from just a free thing on Twitter and a passion, and it just happened. Like, he just kept pursuing it and kept doing it. And
that's cool, man.
Yeah. So, like,
I mean, people have these YouTube channels and they get paid by Google. Corey Miller, I don't know if you remember Corey Miller from back in the day.
Yeah.
He started filming his daughter dancing, and they have a dance studio now, and they have a YouTube channel for Autumn, and it's blown up. They get paid good by Google and YouTube to put these videos up because there's millions of people watching. And his daughter was just on an Imagine Dragons video.
What?
You know what I mean? And it was all from Corey's skills from skating, where he learned to make videos, he learned to network, and I mean, they have a YouTube channel. It kills it.
Yeah, so many, like, so many things, man. So many, and it's not just in skating. It's like in everything in life. The mountain biking, but anything that, like, whether it's baseball, soccer, whether it's woodworking, whatever it is. I think that, like, if you stick to something that you love so much that, like, you're talented at, you just immerse yourself in it. It's good things just come if you just stick with it.
Yeah. I like to think that too.
But that YouTube thing, a lot of people think that that's so easy to do, and I used to think that video editing, I was like, I don't know what these guys do. It's got to be pretty easy, until I tried actually editing a video. Like, I can film kind of a little bit from skating stuff, but then like, I tried to edit it, and I went, whoa, dude, this is way harder.
You want to power warp through the day, like, edit a video. It's like hours go by, and I've learned to do it. Like, I've been teaching myself because I've always been sitting there watching my friends make awesome skate videos, and I'll sit there and be like, yeah, this clip, that clip, blah blah blah, for different projects. But I finally got to the point a couple years ago. I was like, I got to learn this, and so I have the Adobe Creative Suite from work, which has Adobe Premiere editing in it, and I just started playing with it and learning and watching videos, and because my son and daughter want me to make edits of them doing their thing, so I'm like, all right, I can do this without having to like be like brand quality stuff, and it's been really fun to learn that. But yeah, it'll take you down a road of time for sure.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Well, man, dude, this has been a lot of fun. Tom, thanks for being on. Right. It's an honor just to be on here with you again. Like I said, you're one of the guys like in the craziest videos, a name that's well known that I've always like wanted to meet. I actually didn't think that you would say yes to doing the podcast. I was like, and then I got all excited and told my wife, I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm 15 again. I'm like, hey, we're going to go interview Tom Hyser. Is there anything you want to plug before we like get off of here? Anything you want to say? Any of that stuff?
Yeah, go skate. Check out the Rollerblade stuff. We're developing a new skate right now. And if you go on the Rollerblade Instagram and check it out, there's all kinds of cool stuff we're doing there. And yeah, man, you're never too old to keep doing what you love. So just, like I said, life's too short. Get out there and have fun and enjoy each other. There you go. How about that for a minute?
That works, man. That works. Well, thanks, Tom.
Thanks for the time, buddy.